With Netflix losing subscribers, this movie definitely isn't going to be keeping them. Senior Year is Rebel Wilson's latest movie where she played a 37-year-old who'd been in a coma for 20 years and then woke up in the year 2022. Yep, that's right. But I'm here to tell you if it's good or not and if it's worth investing 1 hour and 53 minutes of your time. So let's find out. Here is a review of Senior Year. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Where do I even start with this one? There were multiple things wrong with it, but I think the main thing that's wrong with it is the fact that its substance wears extremely thin after the first couple of minutes where you begin to map out what the ending is actually going to be. And why is that? Well, because we've seen these films so many times since the noughties, and there's a strong reason why there haven't been many since. Because it's a repeated formula that becomes extremely predictable the more you watch them. Rebel Wilson features as a woman who had an accident when she was younger amongst the height of her popularity at high school. She was the cheerleader captain, she had the boyfriend that she wanted, and her dream life mapped out. That was all before it was taken away by Tiffany, the rival popular girl. They had a routine plan for an event, and then during the dance when Stephanie was about to do a flip, Tiffany got the twins to push the person who was supposed to catch her, and then she fell tens of feet to the floor and ended up in a coma. I had a couple of issues with that. One, I don't know how Tiffany didn't get caught and expelled, or at least had a life that was ruined after doing that. But also secondly, the fact that Stephanie and Tiffany were just friends at the end, despite the fact that she caused Stephanie to miss out on 20 years of her life. I know that she apologized for everything and then they became friends, which is something that I just didn't buy at all. As the movie went on, we saw Stephanie want to relive her senior year in high school that she never finished, as that's when the accident happened, hence the movie title. But I think the title is also due to the fact that they referred to Stephanie as old in the movie, which made me think that it's a double entendre referencing the fact that she's also old. Stephanie, despite being 37, still had the mind of a 17-year-old, and she was stuck in the noughties. She wasn't used to the woke, politically correct world of 2022, and she needed to be educated on how she acted, dressed, used technology, and the way that high school was now different to what it used to be. She got back into high school because of her friend from when she was younger, Martha, who was now the head teacher. There was a definite difference in kids not being like the kids that they were when Stephanie was in school. We heard this when popular influencer and daughter of Tiffany, her nemesis when she was younger, Brie, doesn't care about being popular, but she cares more about how she's perceived to not hurt anyone's feelings, so she can represent and stand for everything good in the world. This is so she can appeal to most people, which in turn brings popularity. Popular people aren't these mean people like they used to be, and what we saw in the movies. I thought this was an interesting take and something that's probably quite apparent in high schools nowadays when compared to the early 2000s when technology didn't dictate everybody's lives. Stephanie's main intentions were to go back to high school, break the wokeness that was apparent, and add in some 2000s realness that she grew up with and was used to in her mind, and ultimately become prom queen due to the fact that she didn't get to go to her prom 20 years ago. She did this and caused disruption, mainly amongst Tiffany, due to the fact that she wanted her daughter Brie to become queen. Blaine, who Stephanie was with prior to the accident, lived in the house that Stephanie always dreamed of living in, and was also married to Tiffany, so the rivalry even continued to that day. However, it did tackle the point of things not always being what they seemed in the real world. That was probably the best thing to take away from this movie, that it stood for that message. That you shouldn't always believe what you see on social media because behind closed doors things can be completely different. And it also connected it to Deanna Russo, who was Stephanie's idol when she was growing up, the prom queen of '95. She had the life that Stephanie always dreamed of, however it didn't actually pan out that way. It highlighted that even before the days of technology, even on the outside when it seemed like people had these ideal lives, things weren't necessarily what they seemed. I understand what the movie was trying to get to at that point, but again, it feels like a message that's been worn thin and people are almost aware of nowadays. Maybe if this movie was in 2010, the message would have cut through and landed a bit more with impact. Outside of the core message, the movie was essentially one large cliche. A love story 20 years in the making between Stephanie and Seth, the popular kid being forced to have this life by a controlling mother, Stephanie making up with her friends after there being a rift partway through the movie, and showing that they were there all along and it's not about being popular, and then they all go on to have the happy ending that they all deserve. Even Tiffany, despite the fact she cost someone 20 years of their life. There were definitely some forced moments of comedy, and sometimes the acting did feel quite forced, melodramatic, and stale. Which in a movie like this, where the plot is quite weak, it exposes it for what it is even more. I know I'm probably not the movie's target audience, and I can appreciate that. However, with a movie that gets a lot of press and coverage, you're always going to get people watching it. Senior Year is not worth watching, it's just simply not. They made these movies back in the noughties better than what they did this one. And even that is a statement that I don't enjoy saying, because those films aren't even that good. But they were just done better. This movie belongs back then, where a straight-to-DVD release would allow it to sit on the shelf, gather dust, and you would maybe pick up for a couple of pounds for a laugh. I don't mean to be harsh, but this movie did just feel like a waste of time. But that's merely my opinion. So, there you have it. What I think of Senior Year. What did you think? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.